This is the regular meeting on May 18th, 2021 of the Montgomery ISD School Board. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. As I understand it, we have a few special recognitions tonight, Dr. Morrison.
We do. I would ask Dr. Amy Busby to come forward. This has been, and I know Justin hates when I say this, an unprecedented year. And it has required an amazing amount of heroes and sheroes to emerge to get us through. And the group that we're going to recognize this evening takes a backseat to nobody when it comes to our being very proud of the fact that we've welcomed over 94% of our students back for in-person instruction, one of the highest percentages of students in the great state of Texas, and had one of the lowest rates of having to quarantine students because of close contact. And if that wasn't enough, that would be more than deserving of the recognition, but they just do an amazing job for us each and every day. Dr. Busby.
Yes, I am very excited and honored to recognize this group of ladies. They do so much for their campuses. They bring so much knowledge, so much care, and we just couldn't run our campuses without these individuals. The things they do on a daily basis, it can be something as small as helping a kid with a lost tooth. They could be giving medications. And then it can also help serve in emergency situations. And thank goodness, I remember as a building principal, thank goodness that they were there in those emergency situations. That's on a normal year. So this year, adding COVID to that has just brought a whole new set of responsibilities that these ladies have just stepped up and done a tremendous role. They have had to make decisions that are not clear-cut. When a kid comes in with a runny nose and a cough, is it just a runny nose and a cough? Or especially at the beginning of the year, we just didn't know how to treat those situations and being cautious for COVID reasons as well. So they have had to make a lot of those different kinds of calls and have just handled it with such grace. They help with contact tracing. They help make some of those difficult decisions about how long does someone have to quarantine, when can they come back. And so they have just basically taken on two jobs this year as they have had to face all of those challenges. Even our Governor Abbott, declared May 12th Nurses Day, and I couldn't agree with him more that they deserve that recognition. So tonight we are going to recognize and honor our nurses. In addition to our campus nurses, we also have three very special sub-nurses here with us today. These ladies have been a tremendous help. They have covered clinics when they've needed to cover clinics, but they have also served in the role here at the district office with our rapid testing program. And they have been flexible. We've had clinic days where we had to have two nurses all day long to get through the day, and then we have had days where we are now at only half-day appointments, and 4 or 5 appointments might show up on that day. And they have adjusted and just worked with us on those changes so wonderfully, and excited to do it and excited to help out. So this is such a fabulous group. So without saying anything else, let's recognize each one of them. We're going to begin with our sub-nurses. We have Julie Hart. If y'all will come up when we call your name, and we have a little certificate for you. I'm going to turn around. Another one of our sub-nurses working for us this year, Becky Moore. And Megan Jacobic. And the next nurse that I'm going to recognize is our district nurse. And I'm just going to say a few words about her because I know our nurses are very supportive and rely on her work. And we have relied on her in a whole nother level this year as she has just helped with reporting and just has stepped out of her normal role in so many different ways. Rosalind Frazier, so thank you to her. And from Keenan Elementary, Teresa Musel. From Lincoln Elementary, LaDonna Mueller. Lone Star Elementary, Monica Lemke. From Maidley Ranch, Stacy Backus. And Montgomery Elementary, Clara Nacarado. From Stewart Creek, Lee Kelly. From Montgomery Junior High, Courtney Buckner. From Oak Hills Junior High, April James. From Lake Creek High School, Joyce Sonnefeld. And last but certainly not least, Montgomery High School, Shelley Webb. So very, very special thank you to all of you. I think we're going to get a group picture.
Board, if you could come over with the nurses. Ladies, if we could move you to the center. Awesome.
You all can take your masks off for the photos.
All right, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Got it.
Paper out of your way.
And I believe we have one more special recognition, right? Mr. Marino?
Yes, trustees, Dr. Morrison, we have a special recognition tonight. Tonight with us we have Ms. Lori Zolke from Montgomery High School and Montgomery High School senior Reed Turner. Reed served in a special position. He was the student president of TASC, which is the state organization over all student councils of the state of Texas. So the president of the statewide organization was right here in Montgomery, Texas. Montgomery High School Student Council served this year as the president school with Reed Turner as the student representative and Lori Zolke as the advisor. In this role, Reed presided over all board meetings of the association and was a founding member of a national organization of student council presidents that met monthly to discuss the challenges of student leadership during the pandemic. He represented TASC and MHS at state and regional TASSP meetings and served as part of a national and state student leadership podcasts and webinars for organizations like TASA and Character Strong. Reed led TASC to develop and organize a state service project that provided for the needs of foster children and their families in the state of Texas that totaled over $50,000 in monetary donations, $180,000 in donated goods, and 15,000 service hours towards this cause. Reed is attending Texas A&M in the fall. In addition to winning the presidency last year, Ms. Lori Zolke was named as the TASC State Advisor of the Year. Ms. Zolke served on the TASC board and is a student leadership consultant for TASC. In these roles, she was instrumental in developing virtual student leadership workshops to continue TASC's support of student leaders while not in person. She will continue to serve in her board position as the past president for the 2021-2022 school year. Let's give them both a round of applause.
Justin, as they're coming up, I just want to share, there's a leadership book about don't give busy people even more to do. I don't think they've read that. Reed takes a huge course load of honors and AP courses, was one of your starting, I think, right tackle, Reed? You moved back, but I think you're right tackle for the football team. It does 15,000 other activities, community servant and leadership, and just somehow found the time to be the president of the Student Government Association in the state of Texas. Lori is one of those people, I think Dr. Scher here is tonight, is one of those people probably doesn't know how to say no, but already has her busy teaching responsibilities and CCMR responsibilities. But every time I turn around, I hear about the work that she's doing at Montgomery High School. So these are two amazing people. What they do as students and as our employees is extraordinary. But for them to have taken on this additional leadership and to have that representation from Montgomery ISD, we are very, very, very proud of both of you. Yeah.
They did, Reed. Stand right here.
You might want to have Reed stand on, there you go.
Reed stand. Yeah, very. I also coach Lori's husband in football, so that makes me really old.
Yeah. All right. This past week, the board did meet to canvass and certify election results. Tonight, we have another distinguished guest joining us, Judge Wayne Mack, our Justice of the Peace, who will administer the oath of office for our re-elected Board of Trustees members, Mr. Trey Kirby and Ms. Linda Porton. Judge?
I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of Montgomery ISD Board Trustee, Position 5 of the state of Texas, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, defend the Constitution, the laws of the United States, and this state. So help me God. Congratulations. Kirby. I'm glad to see the rest of y'all I swore in last year still here.
Trey Kirby.
Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the duties of the office of
the duties of the office of
Montgomery ISD Board of Trustees, Position 4
Montgomery ISD Board of Trustees, Position 4
of the state of
of
Texas,
the state of Texas,
and to the best of my ability,
and to the best of my ability,
will preserve,
protect,
defend
defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and laws of the United States
and laws of the United
and
States
this state.
and this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. Dr. Morrison, thank you for the privilege of doing this and my honor and respect to anybody that would want to do what y'all do every day. And the greatest investment in our community is our children. And I'm just so thankful that we have good, godly, patriot, Constitution-believing folks that want to serve in that role. So God bless you all in your role. We're going to take care of some paperwork here before I leave.
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, I don't get paid for doing this.
President Fuller, while Judge Mack is doing the paperwork, I want to take a moment of personal privilege to thank Judge Mack. As you know, when I was named as your superintendent, I spent a lot of time reaching out to people in the community and trying to figure out what was good about our school district and where we can get better. And he was a hard rascal to get pinned down because I was calling him and he would call me back. We finally got together on a Saturday over the phone, and I enjoyed every one of my conversations with the individuals. I can't think of anyone I enjoyed more. And he offered to help, and every time I've reached out, whether it was on a school-related issue or asking him to serve and swear in new board members or returning board members, he asks when and where. And the only thing he's done that disappointed me a little bit was we happened to be at the rodeo together, and we got to do the Queen's Wave at the rodeo, and I wasn't quite sure what to wear, but I saw Judge Keogh, and I liked better what I was wearing than what Judge Keogh was wearing. But then I saw Judge Mack, and he was Johnny cashed out, and I knew I had a little bit of work to do. So, but Judge, that's the only thing you've done so far that you haven't.
Well, God bless you, Dr. Morrison. God bless you, everybody, and all the APs and principals we work with, all your staff we work with. We've had some great wins this year with some kids that were struggling.
Yes, we have.
And your staff has really stepped up, and Mr. Washington back there going out there and making sure we're keeping everybody informed. I appreciate the relationship we have with all of y'all. So God bless y'all.
Thank you, Judge.
Thanks, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, following every board election, the board reconstitutes its officers' positions. Are there any discussions or motions on the reorganization of board officers?
I think in light of the short election cycle and for the sake of continuity with the board, I would like to make a motion that we continue with the present board officer positions of Matt Fuller as president, Gary Hammonds as vice president, and Linda Porton as secretary.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, questions? All right, so Ms. Turner has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Y'all might be rethinking this if I keep screwing this up. Opposed and abstain. Thank you. That motion carries. All right.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
All right. Are there any public comments? I do believe we have one public comment. Mr. Marino will be reading this public comment sent to the school board and from Mr. Jesus Mendoza.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Just very quickly, I want to, this individual reached out. They are not able to be at the, not just inconvenience that there are challenges to be at the school board meeting. We verified that and do want to honor their desire to be heard. Therefore, that is why Mr. Marino is reading that testimony.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jesus Mendoza. I've been homebound for more than 10 years with life-threatening electose hypersensitivity, EHS, which is caused and aggravated by exposure to the same wireless microwave radiation reaching children and teachers at school. I have been violently ill several times. I am sleep-deprived and in pain all the time. Every day is a different torture. This is a horrible way to die. My EHS has been recognized by federal and state agencies and by courts as a physical medical condition and as a disability. EHS proves conclusively that exposure to levels of radiation below federal safety limits causes severe harm and disabilities, and that exposing children to microwave radiation defeats the purpose of education. It is estimated that, without knowing it, more than 50% of the population is already suffering from symptoms of EHS. Children, teachers, doctors, attorneys, and even a director of the World Health Organization are suffering from EHS. Please see wearetheevidence.org. Despite the fact that electrosensitivity is reaching pandemic proportions, most doctors are in the dark or in denial and continue misdiagnosing and mistreating with harmful drugs and invasive procedures, symptoms that disappear with just reducing exposure to microwave radiation. A law firm filed a federal lawsuit with evidence of how cell phones used by our children emit more than 5 times the levels allowed by federal law, when even short doses of radiation above the federal safety limits cause harm, even to healthy and strong adults. And 7 law firms are warning school officials of the potential civil and criminal liability of exposing children unnecessarily to harmful microwave and 5G radiation when inexpensive hardwired broadband internet is readily available. Some of the symptoms of EHS include pain, swelling of vital organs, swelling of face, head and eyes, symptoms of heart and stroke, rashes and loss of skin, flu and allergy symptoms, stomach and digestive troubles, insomnia, vision, hearing, memory, speech, concentration, and breathing problems. Scientific studies prove most doctors are confounding the symptoms of electrosensitivity with symptoms of other illnesses, including autism, ADHD, dyslexia, PTSD, heart attack, stroke, multiple sclerosis, fibromyalgia, hypothyroidism, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, rheumatoid arthritis, chronic fatigue syndrome, diabetes, and major depression of suicidal tendencies. The above is detailed in the request to protect the children submitted to the Secretary of the United States Department of Education, Dr. Miguel Cardona, and posted on the case materials of Jay Mendoza at wirelesswatchblog.org. Ladies and gentlemen, your prompt response to this evidence can save the lives of children and teachers and other defenseless and unsuspecting victims. Thank you very much for giving serious consideration to this matter. Respectfully, Jesus Mendoza.
Thank you, Mr. Marino and Mr. Mendoza. Are there any other public comments? Hearing none, we will move forward in our agenda. Next up is the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to pull any items from the consent agenda for discussion? Then is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Dennison is motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Hammonds is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed and abstain. The consent agenda carries. All right. Next, we have information items. And with that, Dr. Morrison, I believe you're introducing the Student Health Advisory Council, or SHAC.
I wish I had that honor or privilege, but actually that goes to the aforementioned Dr. Amy Busby.
So each year we are required to update you on the activities from our SHAC committee. SHAC is called that for short. So we would like to present information to you tonight. My chair with me is Jill Lococo, so I'd like to introduce her. She is going to help me present the information.
Hello. I've had the privilege of serving on SHAC as either a committee person or the chair for almost 10 years now. And I really enjoy it, and I really appreciate the opportunity to serve. The School Health Advisory Council is appointed by the district to serve the district at the district level. Can I hear that? Yes. Our members come from different areas of the community as well as within the district itself. The majority of our SHAC members are required to be parents from our actual district. And for those of you who didn't know, our Student Health Advisory Council is known as SHAC, as we so lovingly refer to ourselves. Our SHAC Council assists in ensuring that local community values are reflected in health education instruction. We play an important role in strengthening the connection between health and learning. And finally, we help parents and the community to be stakeholders to reinforce the knowledge and skills that our children need to stay healthy and for a lifetime. The federal laws require that we meet 4 times a year. This year, we met on October 29th. We met December the 10th of 2020, February the 11th, and March 25th. I don't know if you want to discuss the activities that we covered. During that time, we reviewed the MISD wellness plan, and we made our revisions to the wellness plan. We increased the number of members of our community and from our parent group, as well as the larger group of the community, and teachers as well. At each meeting, we discuss district updates, and that includes health, it includes nursing, it includes physical activity, counseling, During our meetings, we also reviewed the proclamation of 2022. We had to unfortunately postpone our health fair into next year. We're hoping Shelley Webb usually runs that, and she does a fantastic job. And then finally, we covered over health updates from our student members of SHAC.
Yes, so and just I want to give a big shout out to Miss Lococo. Like she mentioned, she's been doing SHAC for a lot longer than I even knew SHAC existed. And so she's been a tremendous help this year, helping me guide that group and getting information from that group and just saying, yeah, this is what we used to do. So shout out to her for all the help she has given with that. This next part that we're going to introduce is our SNAC, which is the Student Nutrition Advisory Council, which just fits perfectly in with the purpose behind SHAC. And so we're going to let that group come up. And this group is led by our one and only Child Nutrition Director, Lena. So a big shout out to her and the guidance that she has given this group as well.
First off, what SNAC is, Student Nutrition Advisory Council is a group of insightful students at MHS that help our district's nutrition professionals make wise and impactful changes in Montgomery's cafeterias. Okay, so we started this year by electing our first ever officers. I had the privilege of being our president. Andre had the privilege of being our vice president, and then our social media officer just went remote, so sadly she can't be here. We also decided to do Sandwich of the Month. We chose some really nice ones. We bought a sandwich line 2 years ago, I think my freshman year, and so now we're getting to add new things to it other than just ham and cheese or turkey and cheese sandwiches. We also taste test to choose items for next year's breakfast and lunch. We've done that every year. So if we want to make changes to the meals, we can do that. And then we also were highlighted in our student newspaper, and that was really, really exciting. So for our next year, we're going to do a walkathon for hunger. So we're just starting with that, but we do want to collect non-perishables, and we really want to raise awareness on health issues that are affecting our community, because since we've gotten to have such support from our community in this district, we want to kind of give back. And then also we are doing a recipe of the month board in the cafeteria where students can submit healthy recipes to share and be spotlighted in our school. Thank you.
Dr. Busby, can we have our president come back and actually introduce herself to us? And then would you care to recognize and introduce us to your fellow students that are here?
Yes. Okay, so I'm Laircy Griffin.
Perfect.
Do you guys want to just come up here and
Yeah. Do y'all want to say y'all's own names?
It's nervous to get up here, isn't it?
updates us each time we meet at our SHAC, and it is so exciting to hear the work that they're doing and the food that they're tasting. And then we even get to hear about the food that they mix.
Do they need any
Helpers?
guest taste testers?
Well,
Please.
I'm Andre Morgan. I'm the senior. I was the current vice president, but not anymore next year. And we have one of our future.
My name is Bailey Miller. I'm a current junior, and I'm the newly elected secretary.
I'm Grace Tilley. I'm on the snack team.
I'm Allison McCarter. I'm a senior, and I just joined this year, and it's really great. Just going to add that.
My name is Joni Parker, and I'm the school sponsor of SNAC, and I work in the ASC.
Of course, Lena Nuggebauer, and I just want you guys to know that we could not do this program if it were not for Joni and for Krista, who really lead all of this and get it together. And I just can't tell you how much I appreciate all of you guys and all of your input and everything that you do for us. Okay.
All right, thank you guys. If you haven't had a chance to stop by and have lunch at one of our campuses, you really should. It's not like what I remember growing up. It's top-notch food. So thank you, Ms. Neugebauer and team, and to the students, thank y'all for your service. All right, next we have a first reading on a revision of a local board policy related to performance appraisal. And Dr. Morrison.
Thank you, President Fuller. As you know, and we're talking a little bit later in our agenda this evening, with the evolution of our strategic plan, one of our core commitments around Goal 4 is attracting, recruiting, retaining, and growing great employees. A part of our professional growth is making sure we have quality evaluation systems, and that includes a quality evaluation system for our campus and district administrators. We have made a decision after looking at available evaluation instruments and systems that we think the best pathway forward for us is to use the state accountability system and evaluation tool TPES. That will align nicely with how our teachers are evaluated, so there'll be great alignment between classroom instruction and campus administration. And that will mean that we will need to no longer use our locally developed instrument. And so that will require a change in board policy. So tonight is the first reading of that policy. We are scheduled to be receiving training, all district level leaders, campus principals, and campus assistant principals on June 3rd. That training will occur through Region 6. And so again, what is being presented to you tonight is the policy change that will allow that to happen.
All right, board members, are there any questions? I'll just make one little observation. With the first reading, this will appear on the next agenda that we have under consent agenda. If you have any questions, then your time is to pull it now to ask questions or to pull it out then in the future. All right, so hearing no other questions, then we'll move on to item 7C, which is Dr. Morrison will introduce Chris Lynn for an RFQ for architectural services.
Chris Lynn.
Thank you. Good evening. This truly is just an informational item. We're not asking for any action on behalf of the board this evening. I wanted to make you aware that in the next few weeks you will be seeing an advertisement in the paper and on the website for a request for qualifications for architectural services. As you are aware, you received the demographic study last month. And you may not know this, but you will be receiving the facility assessment at your June board meeting. And so don't read anything into this other than this is your administration trying to be prepared. Should the board decide that there is something in the assessment or in the demographic report that needs attention, we just want to make sure that we go through this process and administration is not holding up any plans that the board may see fit. So just wanted to give you that brief update so that you were not surprised when you saw an RFQ out there and didn't know what was going on. So.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lynn. Board members, are there any questions? Okay, thank you. More to come. All right. Next, Mr. Lynn will discuss the preliminary budget for 2021-22 fiscal year.
Yes, so I wanted to take a few moments tonight and provide you with an update on where we stand with the creation of the 21-22 fiscal year budget. Let's start from the beginning. When Dr. Morrison and I both arrived here in the district, one of the areas for improvement that continually came about was transparency in the budget process. And so as we like to remind everybody, budget development should be a process and it should not be a single one-night event. So here in just a few minutes, I'm going to walk you through that process that we've been through this year. A big portion of that process is collecting data and gathering information. And so as you are aware, this year we embarked on the comparison of salaries to neighboring districts. I think that was a new endeavor for the district. We also engaged the Texas Association of School Boards in doing a third-party staffing review. Throughout both of those processes, we had involvement of our principals and they helped us identify staffing efficiencies and also helped us with the salary proposal development. One of the areas that we wanted to make significant improvement in the budget process this year was with our communications. And so we implemented budget town hall meetings. We also had budget roadshow meetings at all 10 campuses and here at the ESC. We also engaged in individual meetings with impacted groups throughout our salary conversations and had budget workshops with our Board of Trustees. Just a little look back on the timeline. Back in September, it was a huge feat to be able to balance the fiscal year 2021 budget. In October, Dr. Morrison recommended and this board graciously approved 2% pay increase for all employees. In January, we presented the TASB staffing review. February, we had our first budget town hall and presented the first look at the compensation data to our Board of Trustees. We also developed our preliminary revenue estimates. In April, you saw the demographic study, our second budget town hall, and at the April board meeting, the board approved the compensation plan for the 21-22 fiscal year. And so as we look forward from this evening, at the end of the month, we will be publishing our notice of public hearing to discuss the budget and the tax rate. That's supposed to say June the 1st, sorry, it says June the 10th. We have your Board of Trustees quarterly workshop. And then right now, tentatively, we have budget adoption scheduled for a called meeting on June the 29th. And then June the 30th, we will post the adopted budget on the website. So that's where we're going from here.
Mr. Lynn, and just very quickly for the board, I did get a chance to discuss this with President Fuller earlier today. Because of some changes and last-minute legislation occurring in the legislative session, we want to make sure that the budget that we present as best we know it to be will reflect anything that might be coming out of the state. As we've shared in our budget workshops and town halls, while we don't anticipate any reduction of funding from the state, there's different categories and changes that could happen through the legislative process. And so we do believe that moving the budget decision from our June 15th board meeting to a specially called meeting on June the 29th is the responsible thing to do so that the budget we present to you is as complete as it can be. And so that is, if you're noticing the change, that is why the change is on this timeline.
And just to recap, as we've traveled through this process, we have shared this information previously, but just to kind of recap, this is a preview of some district revenues and savings that we're anticipating for the 21-22 fiscal year. Our initial revenue projections had an additional $1.7 million in revenue, $1.1 million in a combination of state and local aid. And then thanks to Meredith Berg and the Special Education Department and their dedication, an additional $600,000 in federal SHARS money. As we've worked through the TASB staffing review, we've identified some staffing efficiencies of about $2.42 million. $300,000 in energy savings is our projection. Thank you for approving the contract with Synergistic last month. And then Dr. Morrison and I have kept you informed about our negotiations with some of our larger contracted vendors. And so those three items, you see a little asterisk there beside because we're going to talk about those here in just a second. But all of those projected savings and the increase in revenues is about $4.47 million. So as we start looking at our preliminary budget allocations, these are campus allocations. And so just to explain how this process works, obviously the first component of budgeting is how many people do we have, what are we paying them, and what are their benefits. And so all of those costs are accounted for under the salaries column. The other expense column are those expenses that are taken to, that are needed to operate a campus. We use a formula to develop that amount of money. So for the campuses, we take their student enrollment times a dollar amount per student to generate that number. that we have found to be adequate for what the campus needs are for the rest of the fiscal year. And then we add in special program allotments such as career and technical, special service, comp ed, and all of the other special program allotments. And so currently, as we stand here tonight, as Dr. Morrison said, all of these numbers are subject to change, and I promise you they will change before we get to the budget adoption on June 29th. But we have $52.9 million allocated towards our campuses at this point. The other half of the budget equation is the department budgets, and so salaries and other expenses are primarily where those funding sources come from. And so currently, as you can see, we currently have a little over $79 million of total allocations when you add the department and the campus allocations. A little over $77.7 million in revenues at this point. But I have put a little note, savings in progress but not completed. Those were the asterisks that we talked about on the previous page. Remember, we had energy savings projected at $300,000. Actually, we think it's going to be closer to $400,000 this year. Contracted savings we had identified as $50,000. Through Dr. Morrison's good negotiation skills, he was able to make that $200,000. And then the staffing efficiencies where we had identified $2.4 million, we are still working. That process is not exactly complete, and so we're 12 staffing positions away from meeting that $2.4 million goal. But with those numbers backed out, currently, as we stand here tonight, budget surplus, I did not stutter, a budget surplus of $78,000. We hope that to be significantly more when we bring the budget for you in June. One thing that I do want to point out, that revenue number of $77.7 million is still the preliminary revenue number from back in February. I have purposely not shared an updated revenue number because, as Dr. Morrison said, things are changing in Austin. We are now starting to get also more of a clearer picture of our local property tax picture. And so as we work through the next few weeks.
Mr. Lynn, can
yes,
we
sir.
just again,
Sure.
not for the benefit of anyone who has not been able to attend our budget town halls or other budget workshops, the philosophy that we've taken, the development of the budget through the guidance of this board, is to budget conservatively and to not overestimate enrollment, to overestimate potential state, local, federal additions until we know them to be factual or true. That way, if we get to the point where we're developing a draft budget to our pathway to develop the actual budget, then we have some great ideas and suggestions in terms of how to utilize additional resources. But if you go the other way and you overinflate the revenue or you overinflate the student count, then we have some very challenging decisions, or we ultimately present a budget that is not balanced. And again, the direction of this board is to take that approach, and we've tried to honor that every step of the way under Mr. Lynn's leadership.
So as we look forward to the next couple of weeks, obviously what we're in the middle of right now, and we will finalize campus and department meetings. So I'm having individual meetings with each campus principal and department director. We will finalize our state revenue estimates. You've heard some preliminary conversations regarding ESSER, ESSER 3 money in particular, and about some additional monies that may be coming to the district. So we'll formalize that funding plan. And then, as I mentioned, update our local property tax revenue. All of that to say we will be ready to adopt the budget on June 29th. It is a busy time right now, but we will bring you a balanced budget. That's our commitment to you, and we will make that happen. And so that's our update for tonight.
Board members, any questions?
I just want to say thank you so much for everything you've done this last year. Our community and our district was desperate for transparency in the area of budget, and you have brought that to our district. It's been absolutely amazing. The budget town halls that you've done are just so easy to understand, And I would suggest for anybody that hasn't gotten to see those, they're recorded and online. Please watch them. I'll probably go back and brush up by watching those as well. So thank you so much for that. I just appreciate everything you've done, both of you.
Thank you very much.
Nice to hear that word surplus. It's been a while.
Yes.
It's better than the
the
other word. Okay.
Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen?
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lynn. Thank you, Dr. Morrison. All right. Next, we will have an overview of the strategic plan process. Dr. Morrison, Mr. Marino.
Thank you, President Fuller. I am really excited about the first of our really bringing to your consideration our strategic plan. This has been a journey. It would have been a journey any year coming in as a brand new superintendent and going from an entry plan of asking this community what they think we do well to what we could do better, what are opportunities and threats. With this year, with the challenges of global pandemics, weather events with Arctic blasts, hurricanes, brownouts, and all of the other challenges, there were many times I had to question, is this really the right time? But I actually believe, and Dr. Fuller and I were visiting one of our campuses, and we were talking to our principal in the audience, Michelle Salter. I think it has kept us focused. I think it has actually energized us to not just be dealing with the here and now, but to be thinking about the future and a better future, and to take a district that really is very, very good and make it perpetually great. And a strategic plan really is an assessment of where we are and where we want to get to. And it details what that better future looks like, and if we do it well, what that pathway is going to be to get us there. It was important to me that this be an inclusive process, that we cast a wide net, and if anyone had an interest, we wanted them involved. If someone came up and said, I have a concern, I like the way that things are being done, not only did we listen to individuals, but we invited them to be part of our strategic plan, because you can't just ask the people who agree with you. You have to ask people who disagree if you're going to really make it an inclusive plan. And then you have to have strong leadership to bring it to bear. Every one of these task forces, as Justin and Catherine will share with you in a few minutes, has been led by someone who reports directly to me or one of our campus principals. But the actual leading of this process was very important. It could not be me, because then it's my plan or it's the board's plan, and I want this to be our community's plan. So I needed to have two leaders, one being a campus-based principal and one being a senior staff member that would, with the busy responsibilities they have, take this leadership on. The principal part was easy, because we have an outstanding principal at Lone Star Elementary School who just happened to win a national award, has great performance data, and just a strong, strong school. And I asked Dr. Bartlett if she would be willing to be a leader in this endeavor, and she has done a phenomenal job taking this on with her other responsibilities. The other co-leader was a little bit more challenging, and I know you're going to say, okay, he's not going to be kind to Justin. Had nothing to do with that. What it was Justin had just joined our district, and he was developing a communication department. He was doing a number of other things as a department of one, and I questioned, could I task something of so much importance to someone that was new to our district? And it absolutely was the right call to have these two leading our strategic plan. And so I want to thank both Justin and Catherine for your leadership. We would not be where we are tonight, getting ready to present a draft plan to our board tonight and over your workshop on June 1st without your leadership. So I would ask everyone to give these two amazing leaders a strong round of applause. And with that, I'd like to present our co-leaders for our strategic plan, Justin and Catherine.
Now we're best friends.
Well, thank you, Dr. Morrison, for the kind words, and we're excited to present sort of the process and the journey that has gone into the development of this strategic plan. There truly has been some very authentic and diligent work with fidelity and with community involvement. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and start on the presentation.
Okay, and we think it's kind of like that viral meme that how it started, how it's going. And so this is how it started, and we're going to talk about how it's going. So how it started, you remember that you all adopted these 5 goals in order to make sure that everybody's on board with these 5 tenets of success for our district: curriculum, instruction, and achievement, a safe and orderly environment and the protocols necessary for that, responsible, equitable, and efficient financial practices, the recruitment and development and support and retention of our highly qualified and effective personnel, and our proactive and frequent engagement to support the culture of our district and get our name out there.
And this really did start with the board adopting the 5 goals and performance objectives, and shortly after that, we formed 5 task force committees. These task force committees were led by a principal and a member of the senior leadership team who reports directly to the superintendent. These started with about 15 to 20 members and quickly grew over time to anywhere from 30 to 40 members. Anybody who wanted to join or be involved, we said no to anybody. We welcomed all. These task force consisted of parents, teachers, students, community members, retired employees, and there were hours of work that went into these task forces. The task forces broke down into subcommittees and had subcommittees focused on various topics within each of the goals.
During that fall, everybody completed a SWOT analysis looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats related to their task, and so to their specific goal. They were done in the task force and then also at town hall, and it really enabled each goal to look at some common themes that were going along. From that, we had Zoom meetings, we had task force meetings as necessary. There were specific committee meetings because sometimes a common theme that we saw was, well, we need more information on that. So we had plenty of opportunities that were scheduled for everyone to get together. Of course, our task forces took it to the next level and had their own meetings. We had people go from one task force to another at town hall, which was great because they got to know a little bit about more than one of our groups.
And this is just to illustrate the work of the task force. This is 4 different task forces meeting on the same day here at the ESC. We have large groups, phenomenal participation, diverse set of stakeholders, and one of the photos you see that there were roughly a dozen individuals participating on Zoom in that meeting.
I think phenomenal photography. That photographer ought to be credited and celebrated, but I just happened to have been walking the building that day, and in the bottom left corner, you actually can't see it, but it's in the boardroom, and there were actually 4 subcommittees of, I believe that's goal 3, happening, and so it wasn't just 4 different task forces meeting, but the subgroups under each. An amazing amount of representation and the engagement. And I was actually with one of these groups, and they tried to honor the time commitment and say, thanks very much, but this is the time we'd scheduled, and no one left because they were just so engaged with the work, they just wanted to continue. So it was really, and that was just one afternoon, and there were many, many days that looked like this here.
Exactly. So some of the components you're going to see in the strategic plan will be measurable key performance indicators. And of course that's important because we need to know exactly how we're doing on everything. We need to have something measurable. Data is what's going to show us the success or any areas that we need to tweak. That will determine our success rate and the initiatives necessary for us to reach those success rates and to be able to measure those things. It's one thing just to say, hey, let's measure how happy everybody is, or let's measure how well our boys and girls in 3rd grade do on reading across the district, but we need to have some common strategies to promote that and to keep getting better and better. So those are 2 key areas you're gonna see, some KPIs, the key performance indicators, and initiatives and strategies.
And as we've worked with the 5 task forces and subcommittees to develop possible key performance indicators, this really kind of fell in place on its own. It was really not intentional, but it worked out that there were effectively 4 different categories of KPIs. There's those that will require baseline data from a third party. There's KPIs where we mention maintaining success at a certain rate. There are KPIs where we want to reach a target, a certain, whether it's number of engagements or number of public opportunities for stakeholder input. And then you'll see that there are certain indicators that are set by the state. These are indicators that might be in CCMR, reading, or math in Goal 1 for state accountability.
So using a color-coded system just makes everything a little bit easier and just more beautiful to see. So when we track the KPIs, we're going to have a color-coded system. Obviously, red is whoa, we're not approaching where we need to be. Yellow is we're approaching it, and green is we're meeting it and exceeding. But sometimes we're far exceeding, and that needs to be celebrated. And it also may need to be something that we reevaluate. If we are far exceeding that, that might not need to be something we put down on paper because we have it, like we own that one already. So looking through it through that lens to see where we fall for each KPI is going to be an annual task that we do throughout the year.
And before we switch slides, I was whispered over to Dr. Fuller, this is where it starts to get fun. And we've talked as a board and a team of 8 about management oversight, which is an important responsibility of the board. For you to have the sort of management oversight that the community expects when they elect you, you have to have good data. You have to have a way to measure the data. And we should constantly be sharing where we are, where we're going, and when we are hitting targets, how we're doing it, and how can we sustain that. When we're not where we need to be, what are we going to do about it? Is it resource? Is it execution? Is it some other challenge? And then the conversations at board meetings start to become, how do we continue to get better? How do we change allocations of resources? And how do we continue to evolve our strategies and initiatives? But you need the data to do that, and you need a scorecard for that to happen.
So we wanted to walk through with you some possible key performance indicators, one for each of the 4 categories that I addressed in the previous slide. So if we're looking at a possible key performance indicator where we need some third-party baseline data to set our benchmark to ultimately get to where we believe we should be, we look at Goal 2, the percentage of students that report experiencing a safe and secure school environment will increase by 3% each year. So if we develop our baseline data, and that comes in at 80% of students reporting, we want to increase by 3% each year. If after the first year our target is 83% and we don't make any improvement, the board has the opportunity to ask questions of administration and hold us accountable, say what do you need to improve this number? By year 2, the target is 86, and if we reach 84%, well, we're coding that as yellow because we're approaching, we did make an improvement. And by year 3, if the target is 89 and we blow that number out of the water, we're in the blue. We're saying, okay, let's reevaluate that target. Maybe we need to increase. We're setting the bar higher, so let's hold ourselves even more accountable.
Okay, this will be an example of one where the target stays the same. So, for example, the percentage of employees who would recommend the district as a positive place to work, if our target is 90%, that's the target for each year. Each year we want at least 90% of our employees to recommend our district and say it's a positive place to work. And of course, remember that this is all of the employees, so that includes any that would fall into that attrition rate. So that's why, I mean, of course you would think like, well, we want 100% of that. But remember that sometimes it's not the perfect fit. So that number probably wouldn't be 100%. I know that would be a question that somebody might have. So for example, 90% each time. That first year, and again, this is just a pretend example, right? So the first year it was only 85%. So we know we need to do a little work. Are we all working on the strategies? Do we have these things in place? Is there anything we need to tweak a little bit? Are we listening to the feedback of our people? And then looking at how it would grow. The next year, 89%, the next year, 91%. That's a great target, a great example target, because we're hovering right around it.
Can I ask a question on this real quick? I noticed a few slides ago, you talked about ways of measuring the KPIs. And so with this one as an example,
How would you measure that?
You talked about third-party
Yes.
survey. Could you expound on that?
Yes, and we'll cover that in a future slide,
Okay.
but.
You're just way ahead.
Several of our KPIs will require baseline data to really get the benchmark of where we are. And third-party data is most important because it's viewed as unbiased. We can extrapolate the data from a campus-by-campus level. We can extrapolate the data from a department-by-department level so that, we see 89%, that's great. There might be one department who's lower and one who's really high, so then we can really dive deeper into where we need to improve. Here's a third example of a possible key performance indicator. This is reaching or exceeding annual targets. Goal 3, at each fiscal year end, the district's fund balance will be at least 25% of the total budget, but not exceed 50% of the total budget. So by year 1, 30%, and we see growth over the 3 years, they would be color-coded green because they are within the target.
And this is actually one that you would not want to see us exceed, because if we exceeded it, then we would have, Chris is saying I would like to have that problem, but then we would have an excess of 50% of the budget, and therefore we're not managing our resources wisely, or there's other things that we should be doing in the budget. So this is one that we would never want to be in the red, but we also would never want to be in the blue.
And then finally, this is an example of a KPI that has a target already set for us by the state. And so this example would be for our college-ready kids. The target is 66%. So that is going to be the target because it is given to us by TEA. So that's the standard to meet an A rating, and of course that's always our goal. And you can see right there how that example stays the same, but hopefully we just keep moving up and up on it.
And Catherine, can you explain too why this one has 5 years of targeting?
Yes, because we are looking at 5 years of academic data under the TEA accountability system. So goal 1 is a little bit different because we're incorporating TEA, and that just muddies all of the water, right? So, so with that one, we do have 5-year goals for them. It goes all the way out to 2024, 2025. So.
As we updated you at a workshop, House Bill 3 requires you as a board to set aggressive targets, and those targets have to be over 5 years. And so we blended and aligned that requirement in part of our strategic plan. So many of our Goal 1 targets will have more years than some of the others because the rest of the plan is really focused around 3 years.
So data gathering and needs, going back to setting our baseline and our benchmarks for where we start and where we want to be. So there are state targets through the accountability system, as the previous slide just indicated, third-party audits, reviews. We recently, earlier this year, engaged TASB for a study of our HR department. This is something that we would look at as a possible option for other departments. And surveys, third-party surveys, and when necessary or when appropriate, even internal surveys if we're talking about a small group of employees or a targeted area of the district.
All right, so this is an example. We want to just make sure we have an authentic baseline when we're setting our goals and we're tracking them. We're not just picking a number out of the sky, right? We want to have some authentic baseline data to support that. And then this is what the timeline would look like. Each year we would do another survey just to track that growth and see what our success rate is on it.
And this, I think, speaks, Lori, to your question.
Yes.
So a lot of the KPIs are going to be needing to have a baseline survey. And because you want to make sure that the data is authentic and valid, we don't want to produce in-house surveys, and we want to go and get a third-party vendor that this is what they do, they are exceptionally good at it, that they also do this work with other school districts, because if there's ever, well, that vendor just did the data that the district wanted. Well, as important as we think we are in Montgomery ISD, a vendor that does this sort of work is not going to skew the data on behalf of the district and therefore lose their business model for an account of our size, because some of the vendors that we're looking at do other districts like the Houstons and the Fort Worths and the Dallases and districts all over the country. So they are not about trying to make our data look good. They are about making the data accurate, authentic, and valid. And so that's one of the things that will be very important is for us to select a vendor because so many of these KPIs will require that third-party validation.
And this is a slide that we thought trustees would really appreciate. Moving forward, we view our board meetings as being very fundamentally different after the adoption of the strategic plan in that each meeting we will bring forward a goal or a department to provide an update on the status of the KPIs and the initiatives and strategies that are applicable to their work. So this is just a possible calendar. You see, for example, in January, Goal 1 would present because we received the taper reports in December. Goal 5 in April and Goal 3 in May. So this is just a hypothetical board calendar to give you an idea of how the board would be able to monitor progress throughout the strategic planning.
And then this gives some alignment for our campuses. So one fun part I know you all remember is looking at campus improvement plans and approving those at the beginning of the year. And that's always our favorite part too as principals. So what we want to make sure is that we don't have one taking the place or adding to, like that is not helpful at all. So the way this is the strategic plan is the overarching plan, and then underneath that is the district improvement plan. All of the KPIs, the goals and objectives that come from the strategic plan are the district improvement plan. So our next step is to push that out to the campuses for their campus improvement plan. So for example, some of the strategies that we'll find in the strategic plan and the district improvement plan might be more relevant to high school. So for me as a Lone Star Elementary principal, those strategies I might take off. I might have some more that are personal just to my campus. I can add those. And so we're the little green boxes down there because we're going to personalize those for us. However, we're going to have all of the other strategies in there that relate to our campus. And since our campus improvement plans and the district improvement plan is an annual plan, that's a natural checkpoint as well for all of the strategies and how we're doing on the KPIs for our strategic plan. So that's our next step, is to push that out for the principals.
And then also we can go back, Justin. You will also, on that slide, you will also see departmental plans, and this will also be a change that the board will see. Not only will campuses do their CIPs, but then each department will also do a departmental improvement plan. It will have alignment to the strategic plan. There will be KPIs in the strategic plan that they will need to speak to because they are focused particularly on those areas. And then there will be other KPIs and strategies that they will develop for their other obligations. So for example, just try to get you to, in our community, to get a sense of how this will evolve. Justin, can we go back to the Goal 2 KPI?
There.
Perfect, right here. So if the baseline data comes in from the fall of next year that 80% of our students feel safe, we target set over the next 3 years to try to get to 89%. Then the goal for 2021, 2022 is 83%. Every campus will have a KPI in their CIP based off of their own base level data to get to where they need to be. But we want the alignment and accumulation of those campuses to get us to 83%. Then additionally, different departments will look at it and say, how are we going to contribute to making students feel safe in school? So our school police will have their own departmental plan and KPIs. Clearly, they will have an area of that. Potentially, Dr. Busby and the multitude of offices she serves, being student service, will have departmental plans with alignment to that KPI. And potentially, based on what's causing 20% of our students to not feel safe at school, if it's a facilities issue or some other area of operations, potentially Joe Kennard back there, hey Joe, how you doing? Or potentially Chris Lynn and his departments may play a role. But the data will drive those departmental plans and they will drive the KPIs. And then as we come forward, so if you move ahead, Justin, to stop. Thank you. On these updates to the board, you will have each department share with you their departmental plan, their own metrics aligned to the strategic plan, and then they will be able to discuss not only how they are achieving success in their departmental obligations to support and service our schools and our students, but also what they're doing to move forward the strategic plan. And so those will be on a rotating system. I'll work with our new board leadership or our returning board leadership, but we will update the board operational calendar. And so we'll sequence the departmental presentations to the board and then the appropriate time for each goal to be presented. As Justin said, some of these make sense. For example, goal 1, because so much of the data that will populate the KPIs in goal 1 will come from the TAPER report. So we get those data in December, so it's appropriate to come forward to the board in January. So again, this is how management oversight really starts to take a different viewpoint in Montgomery ISD.
So, back one slide. So, you're going to, who's running this thing? Next slide.
Justin is.
Oh, you're going too quick. So for the District Improvement Plan 2021, I understand the flow down, right? All the way down to the campus levels. Is that work already started with the campuses, or?
So we typically do that in the summer. So fun.
Yeah, well, that's what I was getting at.
That's right. We do a needs assessment with our staff to close out the year. How did we do? Where do we need to improve? What areas can we grow? Every principal does that. And then individually in the past, what we've done is take that needs assessment, create our campus plan, incorporate the district goals as they are being written at the same time, and then tweak it as we need to when we come back to school. So now, what we're going to do is, since we already have the KPIs and strategies in draft form for the strategic plan, is I'm just going to type all of that and push it out to the campuses. So it'll be, the strategic plan will be the district improvement plan. We may need to add a couple things, but really it is what it is. It's just an annual version of the strategic plan. And then we'll push that out to the campus, so that part's already there. So when they add theirs or delete anything that doesn't apply to their school, all the ones that we are all accountable for will be in place. And so that way we can make sure they're all in place, and we're not in September saying, hey, everybody add something about this. Which, I mean, well, that could still happen because TEA. But other than that, it should all be uniformed and aligned.
And each CIP will have elements that will look very similar, but they will also be different. I would imagine at Lone Star there will be target strategies and some KPIs around their Lighthouse initiative.
Right.
At some of our Title I campuses, there will be some things that speak to specifically serving the needs of our Title I students. At Montgomery Elementary School, I'm sure there will be strategies and KPIs around dual language. So there will be elements of each plan that will look similar because of alignment to the district strategic plan, but then each campus and each department will also have KPIs and strategies that speak to their specific area of focus.
And that's a really good point, because what we found throughout all of the task forces and the meetings with the public is that there are so many strong initiatives and support for them that are maybe only relevant to certain campuses. So even though it's not in the strategic plan, like dual language is a perfect example, that's not an initiative that we have at my campus, and but it will still be in the campus improvement plan for MES. So that's a great example.
So the next steps. On June 1st, we will be very excited to present a draft strategic plan to the board during the board workshop. And if you all see fit on June 15th to adopt the plan, it will be presented for your approval during the regular June meeting.
And just to share a little bit about the workshop, what I'm excited about, so many things about that workshop, Gary, not a retreat, is that it's going to be months and months of work, but it's work that really speaks to our community. And their desire for what's going to make us a premier school district in the state of Texas. We will get you that draft plan well ahead of time. So I'm not assigning you homework, but we're assigning you some homework, because it will be a better workshop if you have read it, marked it up, and you come in and you are not going to hurt our feelings if you ask questions, if you ask why this and not that. Why do you think that strategy is going to work when I've had it? And that's really, we want it to be a collaborative conversation. This isn't the plan that I would have drafted by myself, or Justin, or Catherine, or Michelle, or Dr. Shearer, or Chris, or Amy, or anyone. This really does speak to the work that has happened collaboratively, but ultimately it is coming forward for your input and your involvement. So that workshop, we will share with you all the proposed KPIs. We will share with you the proposed strategies and initiatives that we think will make those KPIs and goals a reality. And then we look forward to a robust conversation, because we got to get through 5 of those goals, and there's a lot. I think every goal, Justin, outside of goal 1, has at least, 12 to 13 KPIs?
Yes.
And about how many initiatives and strategies?
Roughly 25 to 30.
And Dwayne, goal 1 has buku. But that's nuts and bolts of what we do, right? It's instruction.
Academics, that's right.
It really is a giant puzzle, and everybody has a piece. It really is. We're just 2 people talking, but it has been so much work on everyone's shoulders. It's just been fun to watch it all come together.
Well, you're 2 people talking, but I'll tell you, we recognized nurses earlier. We've been through this pandemic. Now we've got a strategic plan that actually really means something, and it flows from the top all the way down to the bottom. And you guys have done a wonderful job in putting this together, but we've had community engagement through the entire process.
Yes.
So this hasn't just been administrators, board members. This has been a collaborative process, and the community actually engaging around this to pull this together. But you have provided that framework and that leadership for that. That wouldn't have happened without you. And it's in Dr. Morrison as well. So I feel a lot more comfortable that we've got a budget that aligns to strategic goals. We're balancing a budget. We've actually got a real opportunity to go for programs in this district now that really are impactful to our kids. And that's from all the hard work that we've actually done. And it's been the community, it's been the administrators, it's been the parents, it's been all of you. And I really feel good about where we're heading right now. And having gone through this last year and all the things that we as a nation and now as a community and being able to accomplish these things despite handling all that, and locusts I think are next, is that what you said one time?
Keep on saying, waiting for the locusts.
So despite all that, you've managed to achieve this, and it's phenomenal. I mean, Chris, Lynn, the budget, it's great. And we've hired some really good people lately. We're moving people around to the right positions. There's been so much really, really good stuff happening. So thank you.
It's a 1,000-piece puzzle for sure. Yeah, it is. And you know what's great is all the programs that you're talking about will have the data to support how successful they are and what the impact is for kids.
Yeah, and
So
what programs do we need to tackle next?
That's right. It's good stuff.
Well, Mr. Hopkins kind of stole my thunder just a little bit there, but all I want to say a ditto, just me personally, I want to say a ditto to what he said, but just add in one little element. Some of y'all are just now wrapping up your first academic year here with us. And you've had a lot of impact in this year. And to everyone that's chipped in and helped out, I know it's been one for the record books is one way to say it, but I want to say a sincere thank y'all. And, our work is not done. So board members, to community members, I plan to meet with a few folks, ask them, hey, is this KPI right? Is this what y'all think as a parent? What do y'all think? And, we got a little ways to go, but I feel like we've made giant steps in 1 year. So thank y'all very, very much. Any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
All right, to everybody, thank y'all so much. Next, I believe we have our monthly financial report. Nothing normal, or nothing out of...
Whoa. Good job, Brez.
Nothing out of the norm, excuse me. Board members, any questions on that? The board has conducted its closed meeting work already, so we do not need to go back into closed meetings. So with that, I will call this meeting adjourned.